So this is going to be a nice little fun, compact kind of a video where we're going to grease joints, change oil, and have a little fun with some coolant, the coolant system. Cooling system. Coolant. We still have no drive shaft, but like I said, I think supposedly that's getting shipped out, I think, on Monday. And when we get it, we'll be able to install it, bolt it right on up, go take it around for a spin, make sure we have solved our problem with the driveline vibration, and hopefully that's just completely fixed, because that would be a nightmare to have a drive shaft explode or cause further damage down the line somewhere, you know, in the drivetrain from just that kind of vibration. But anyways, while we are waiting and while the car is lifted up, we're going to take this moment, which is a golden opportunity to do some maintenance on the Mustang, and we're gonna do a little sciencing. Okay, we're gonna science this maintenance a little bit, because on top of changing the oil, because I think the oil's been in there for a minute, and we're gonna go ahead and put some fresh oil in there, but we will also, along with the oil change, I'm going to grab the grease gun and we're going to grease all the joints. Easy peasy. That'll be the first thing we knock out. It'll be the messiest that we have to do. After we grease the joints, change the oil, we're going to maybe refresh the cooling system a little bit. So we're in Texas. It's not going to freeze too often. It does get below freezing every once in a while. So I'm not going to completely remove coolant entirely, but I did grab some distilled water and I grabbed some water wetter that we're going to put into the car. Now, what I do want to do is I'm going to record and show you that with the car idling with all coolant, we're going to show how much denser that coolant, the 50-50 coolant, because it's 100% 50-50 coolant in the car at the moment. I'm going to show what temperature just idling in the garage, kind of the engine and the cooling system can hold the temp at. Then what we're going to do is we're going to let it cool down, and after it cools down, we're going to drain some coolant. We're going to fill some distilled water in there, and we're going to do it again. We're going to see if it drops temperature. Now, if it drops temperature, that would be a plus. That'd be a win. Then, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a second jug, but the second jug will also be enriched with the water wetter. And then we'll double check again if it drops the temperature even further. For any of those who also have greasable suspension joints and you're curious of the interval of when to grease them, my interval is every oil change. So every time I change the oil, go ahead, throw a couple squirts in each one, takes care of it. There's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, so 8 total. Here we are greasing the front. The front has 6 grease zerks. We got 1 on the tie rod, lower control arm, and then the upper control arm. And then we can call this done. But before we finish, we're actually going to take a little bit of grease, put it on our finger, and we're going to smear it with these red polyurethane bushings we got here. Because if they're not greased, they make a ton of noise. Done with the greasy stuff. Let's go ahead and change the oil. Should take like 5 minutes, right? That was surprisingly loose. Oh. All right. Just need to let that guy drain. Pop the vent. Cool. It actually doesn't look too bad. I know on camera the light's probably not the best, but it is definitely time to be changed, but you can definitely see through it. Looks like that nice, good tea kind of color, you know. All drained up. You don't need to crank it down, just nice and snug. And every time it's hand tight, but when it comes off, it is, oh snap, we pierced, we punctured. See, good thing I have this catch. Alright, well, here we go. I'm just going to go ahead and toss this guy, toss the new one on while we're down here. So, if you are new to the channel and you haven't heard my theory on oil and changing oil, types of oil, brands of oil, methods of oil changing, well, here you go. While we fill this up, I think Motorcraft oil is just fine. I don't think Royal Purple does anything special. Nothing at all. It doesn't do anything better. Mobil 1, it's a great oil brand. I've had success. I put Mobil oil in here before, especially there was a time where Motorcraft was unavailable. If I am going to drive the car around and not race it too much, like this car shows the little small spurts of fun on the road, as you may we call it, 5W30 Motorcraft oil does just fine. Nothing wrong with it, not a problem with it, works great. If you go racing, whether you are, if you're going racing and you're NA like me, 5W50, it'll give you that little bit extra protection, a little bit extra buffer. That's what I'll do. I have gone racing on 5W30. The engine survives. Okay, so it's not an absolute must. It's not going to blow up. If you're boosted, you're probably going to go 5W50 no matter what, forever and always. I don't oil the rubber seal that goes against the machined adapter where the oil filter goes, because think about it, it's a machine surface, it's perfectly flat, and I know some people are like, well, it makes it seal better. Well, think about it this way: you putting a lubricant on something that's meant to be screwed on for it not to move, you make it easier for it to come off. So to each their own on that. I'm not gonna crucify you if I see you doing it. It's one of those things. It's none of my business, you know. So if you comment down below, go, hey, you didn't oil the oil filter. Yeah, because I want it to stay there. As you probably saw, I didn't fill up the oil filter whenever I screwed the oil filter on. Look, oil is going to very quickly get to that oil filter. The oiling system will have a very, very, very brief, momentary blip of no oil. But like I said, there's oil already in the engine. Like when you drain oil, you're not getting all the oil out. You're not getting all the oil from all the different passages, all everywhere. So there's still oil everywhere in the engine. So just keep that in mind. Like you're not oilless, for too long. So again, just like you putting oil on the rubber seal, that's to a machine surface, to it's meant to stay put and not go anywhere, that you lubricate to make it easier to come off. Anyways, if you fill it up, good for you. That's a good job. I applaud you. If I had a gold star to give, I give you the gold star. So you know what? I'm actually do you one better. We're actually going to crank this car up. It's cold since we just did the oil change, and I want you to watch the oil pressure gauge. It's not going to be short of oil for hardly no time flat. So there you have it. If you want to crucify me in the comment section, I'm happy to be here. Trust me, I read the comments, and if you got something to say, we'll have a chat about it. And but for the most part, I think we're a-okay and on point with the oiling. So, all right. So the next thing I want to do is I'm gonna leave the car idling, and I'm gonna jump back to when it gets up to operating temperature, which is going to be lately it's been hitting like 198, 199, and before, when I diluted the coolant, it would be at like 196, like 194, 195, 196. So I kind of want to try to see if we dilute the coolant down, remove some of that dense, fluid. Ideally, I'm thinking that a coolant is much more denser than the distilled water I'm about to put in there. I want to see if that drops at a few degrees. If that drops at a few degrees, we're going to do the process again, but we're going to do it with, but then we're going to do it with the distilled water plus water wetter. Kind of want to see how that'll all work out. So, all right. So we got our little coolant burp kit right here. All right. So I like this thing. All right. We're gonna take all this out. So we're going to need this one, and I think we need the big one. We'll take this one, we'll put off to the side, we'll take our jug, and so this guy goes right in there. I will see you guys in a bit. Alright, coming along. Currently at 162. Coolant just got to 195, so the fan kicks on. So we're at 196 right now for the N-gauge. That should creep up a little bit more. And we want to try to see if we can't use a little bit of science to make that temp a little lower. So looks like we're going to be at 198. We've been at 198 for quite a while. So let's go ahead and shut her down. We'll go ahead and drain the first bit out of the radiator and then fill up our first jug of distilled water. Finally, this thing stopped draining. Of course, we'll let it burp a little bit, but because it's just water and not kind of a coolant, or the 50-50 coolant, my expectations is this will run cooler with distilled water. And everything that I've read and seen others do, it should run cooler. Now, is this one jug enough? I don't know, but we're about to find out. Alright, so this is looking at 1 gallon of distilled water diluted into the coolant. As you can see, and I've burped it pretty good. As you can see, it kind of still gets up to that same 198, 199 temp, but if I push the accelerator, the temperatures drop way faster than, say, if it was just all coolant. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the throttle. All right, so this distilled water, I poured a little bit in there so I had room for all the water wetter. I added enough water wetter into this 1.5 gallons, I think, or gallon jug for the 3.5 gallons of fluid that is in the coolant system for the engine. We are now filled up with some diluted 50-50 with distilled water. Then we kind of did a little bit of a drain. That probably mixed up a little bit. But then we now have added distilled water that's been treated with water wetter by Redline. Water wetter by Redline. You can find it in AutoZone. Also, to clarify, I am not promoting water wetter or any of the other products seen here. Purely independent study. I'm going to burp the coolant and let's see, because it looks like because of the type of fluid that's in the coolant system doesn't keep the engine cooler. However, having less dense fluid, example, distilled water versus coolant, it cools down faster, with throttle circulation. So just started it up. We're starting off at 178 degrees. So let's go ahead and burp this coolant and we will continue with our little experiment. Alright, so it does seem to be holding the tip a little bit lower. So if we rev it up, let's see how quickly circulating the coolant will cool it down. Cranked it up again, and now it's barely moved from 194. So what was accomplished here? We greased all the joints. That was a good thing. We changed the oil. That was another good thing. We did probably like a silly experiment that really didn't yield like crazy results. So what I did was, in the end, just to summarize the coolant deal, is we looked that with regular coolant, we were getting right up to like 200 degrees idling. And then if you hit the throttle a little bit, it would drop down to maybe 196, 198. Then I took 1 gallon of distilled water, drained as much of the coolant as I could, filled back with distilled water, cranked it, let it get back up to temp, burped, and then it still got up to like 198, 199 as far as an idling temp. But when we gave it throttle and it started circulating the fluid, it cooled down the whole lot faster. It even cooled down, which I think to like 190 degrees. So then when I was at the AutoZone, I picked up some Redline water wetter because I've heard from several friends who go just water with water wetter and no coolant that it cools better. Well, it still kind of went up to 198. It didn't really go up to 200 like, in the beginning, so there was some improved cooling effect. But when you gave it throttle with the once diluted, second, diluted with plus water wetter, it cooled down faster. So an improvement. So all I can really claim that this has actually accomplished was that it does cool it a little bit faster. But because you have so much capacity of fluid, it's still going to hold so much heat. Now, the reason why you drop maybe a degree or two from going from coolant to water is it just cools just a little bit better, a little bit faster, just a smidgen. But if the car's under load and we're moving forward, air's hitting the radiator doing its job, I have a pretty good feeling that it's going to cool down the car easier and faster as long as that water is circulating. So keep an eye out for any updates. I do post on, updates quicker on Instagram. And if you guys, like the video, hit the like button. If you have some additional information that might educate me on what happened, why it happened, do it below. We'll have a discussion. And if it's your first time here, why don't you think about subscribing? And I'm pretty excited to get this thing back on the road as soon as the drive shaft shows back up, which supposedly gets shipped out Monday, the 22nd, I think it is. I don't know. Yeah, Monday the 22nd. So hopefully we'll have a drive shaft by the end of the week, and then we can get back to really having fun, driving around. We can continue doing some brake tuning, some suspension tuning, and maybe do some draggy hits and see if we can improve upon some old times that we had. But appreciate you watching. Keep an eye out for the next one.